welcome everybody to the next installment of BoKnows. Today I'm actually going to recap and highlight some of the discussion that I had with a number of international lawyers here in Atlanta at the American Bar Association's Financial Services Technology Joint Subcommittee meeting. It's a mouthful. I just like to think of it as a FinTech subcommittee meeting. So the ABA's business law section is having their spring meeting. It's been a great event in Atlanta, and I was had the opportunity to speak on a panel with other Regtech CEOs and lawyers in the space, just to talk about Regtech in general, talk a little bit about how Regtech is impacting the legal industry, and just kind of have an open discussion with lawyers both here in the US and throughout Europe who deal with Regtech products. We also spent time talking about merger and acquisition activity in this space, particularly in the Regtech space. If you look at a recent blog post, we talked about how there's been a lot of investment in Regtech over the years. It continues to grow. It continues to grow even into this year. It's in most cases just as hot as FinTech generally. So this little subset is performing in line with the broader industry. But what we're also seeing is a concentration in investments. So on the VC side, you're seeing not a lot of firms get to their first or second round. In fact, over half of the firms never even have more than one round. And those initial rounds tend to be very small. But if you're a firm, a Regtech firm that can get to that second or third round, then all of a sudden investors are willing to put a lot more money, probably because you've proved a very good use case and found a good product market fit. But investment is definitely distorted towards kind of late stage Regtech companies as opposed to fostering newer stage innovative companies. But on the M&A side, what we're also seeing is whether it's PE or venture-backed or existing Regtech companies, there's kind of two things going on the M&A side. One, you have some companies that are trying to integrate from top to bottom in the marketplace. So maybe they're enterprise level and they're trying to acquire someone who services a smaller to middle end of the market, or at the same time or separate from, they're also trying to integrate horizontally. So instead of just going from one product that does something very narrow and specific, they're trying to come up with a suite of products that expands their offering, not only in their Regtech space, but maybe starts to spill over into other spaces like operation tech or other parts of FinTech, InsurTech, things like that. So to kind of get this horizontal integration kind of throughout the financial services industry where they could offer multiple products. So that got really hot in the last 2 quarters of 2021. It remains hot in the first 2 quarters here of 2022. So we'll see kind of how that that disrupts the marketplace. One of the last points I'll raise that we talked about are, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of Regtech? And from this, on the strength side, it's nothing new, right? Regtech can help automate repeatable processes that, quite frankly, most people don't want to do. It could scale those processes to handle a lot higher volume of transaction. Along with scalability, you also get kind of cost efficiency, right? So if you're using a manual or semi-manual process, at some point as you grow in volume, you've got to add people. Labor costs can be expensive. A scalable technology product will definitely have much lower marginal costs as you creep up the volume ladder. The other thing I think that isn't talked about very often with Regtech is it can provide a better UX experience, right? And a better user experience. So we as consumers are very used to, on the consumer side, having great user experiences with our products, whether it's on our phone or our tablets or TVs, computers, whatever. Software on that side is very smooth, very functional, very appealing. It's very good at times at getting you to maybe focus on it instead of other things in your life, but it's a great user experience. When we look at Regtech, it's definitely lagging the consumer side, right? It's like many other business applications. Not a lot of thought goes into and effort goes into kind of the user experience. It's certainly the user interface, but as Regtech matures and provides that better UI and UX, you're going to see, I think, increased adoption you're going to see increased use by employees. We talked about how the right Regtech product can help increase compliance by making it easier for employees to meet their compliance obligations. And part of that's the user experience. So we did talk about that. And that is a strength that I don't think is talked a lot about in the industry as compared to, say, the automation and scalable and cost side. On the weakness side, it gets back to a few of the things that we discussed during the meeting. One, there really being no industry standards for evaluating Regtech products. This is, I think, an area, and we talked about this in some of our earlier videos after the NSCP's annual conference in November, that the industry really needs to start pushing forward some benchmarks and expectations as far as evaluating these products. We also talked a little bit about, one of the questions that was posed to the panelists was, and myself as a CEO of a tech company is, well, how do you know the tech is doing what it's doing? How do you build it in a way where it's going to be effective? And that really requires participation by the end users, right? So no tech product is going to do what it sets out to do until it gets through dummy data, through test data, and into at least some low level of production where live data is being fed into it. And that requires participation by industry participants. So there has to be some comfort level with these registered entities in starting to participate in the development of Regtech before we really see it start to take off. We talked about this earlier. I think some of the uncertainty around product liability is a potential weakness of Regtech. I mean, certainly if you're selling enterprise level software to a large, multinational bank, that bank is going to require some level of product liability. They're going to require that the vendor, goes through some type of SOC 2 audit. So a lot of expectations around kind of how vetted is the vendor, how vetted is the product. But as you move down market into the smaller middle size of the market, you don't have those same level of expectations because small businesses don't have those same level of expectations. So, developing some standards around product liability at kind of all levels of the market, I think is needed. The other thing that I think is needed before Regtech kind of has its golden age is better integration. A lot of Regtech today is focused on doing maybe just one or two tasks very well. And whether you're an enterprise level or whether you're a small business, nobody wants to have to deal with 15 different Regtech vendors, right? That's just too cumbersome. They might pick one or two for the biggest pain points, but they might be willing to adopt other technology, but not if they have to constantly be overseeing vendors, doing initial due diligence, ongoing due diligence. So, and this gets back to that M&A strategy. If a platform could offer a lot of different products, kind of across the regulatory spectrum, I think that will also increase adoption. So that integration across the regulatory spectrum, which also means you're probably going to have fewer and fewer vendors, right? I mean, you're going to need some concentration vendors who compete in many different areas of Regtech. That's where the market's just naturally going to evolve to. And the last thing, we started to touch on this a little bit towards the end, but unfortunately ran out of time. And it was particularly, it was a topic that our European counterparts, which is about half the room, were very much interested in, was just on data privacy issues and things like that. So, as data privacy becomes better established, not only in the United States, but globally, and as standards, emerge, that's a weakness that will go away, but is a weakness now, right? The same product you use in the United States may not meet the data privacy requirements in the European Union, and therefore it's got kind of a limited expansion or limited market, at least, as to where they could sell those products. So those are some of the hot topics. There was a lot of great conversation. We'll talk about some of these in blogs on our website coming up. And to the extent you've got any questions or comments or want to participate in this dialogue on some of these areas, feel free to contact me. Would love to kind of work with other industry participants, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a Regtech firm, in setting some of these standards and kind of helping to propel our little industry towards its golden age. So feel free to comment. Thanks.